In 1814, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris White with the American Battlefield Trust, and I'm excited today to discuss the Battle of New Orleans with you, this January 8th, 1815 battle that took place during the War of 1812. And it's a battle we don't get to discuss very often here at the American Battlefield Trust, but more importantly, it is a piece of property that we don't always get to do work at. And what I mean by that is we finally get to preserve some land down at the Chalmette battlefield, or at least we have an opportunity to preserve land down at the Chalmette battlefield in New Orleans. Now, before I get to these 40 acres that are so crucial to the Battle of New Orleans and the opportunity that we have to preserve, I want to walk you through just very quickly the Battle of New Orleans, which again took place on January 8th of 1815. It's part of the War of 1812. August of 1814, the U.S. Capitol is captured and burned, and then Baltimore is threatened. That is where we have some of the most famous actions to come out of this War of 1812, the burning of Washington, and of course, the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Francis Scott Key. Baltimore does not fall, and Great Britain then will move from the Chesapeake down into the Gulf of Mexico. And eventually they will set their sights on New Orleans, which does not sit at the edge of the Gulf of Mexico and the Mississippi River. It actually sits up the river by about 69 miles inland. But New Orleans is a key piece of the puzzle. One thing that they did not bank upon, the British did not bank upon, was the fact that the Americans would react quickly. On December 1st of 1814, about 3 weeks before the British incursion along the Mississippi River, Andrew Jackson, Major General Andrew Jackson, moved a force of United States Army soldiers, Marines, as well as a hodgepodge polyglot unit of Kentuckians, Tennesseans, and many others down into New Orleans. And Jackson is there. He installs martial law on the city and takes over the city itself. He calls on the city's fathers to help protect New Orleans as well as its citizens. And over the next few weeks, Jackson will put together a mishmash of an army that really should not have won the Battle of New Orleans, but will turn out is victorious and one of the most famous armies in American history. Jackson's army will consist of those U.S. Marines, men of the United States Regulars, the regular army. Then we'll have those men from Tennessee, Kentucky. We'll have arms shipped down from Pittsburgh. We'll have Choctaw Indians who join up. We'll also have Baratarian pirates who step up to help out Andrew Jackson. This unit will grow to be somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 men strong. And Jackson, when he finds out that the British have made their incursion on December 23rd of 1814, will sally out with about 2,500 men and meet these British soldiers near what becomes the Chalmette battlefield in New Orleans. It's a brief but heavy skirmish that takes place, and Jackson eventually falls back towards New Orleans, but not into New Orleans itself. He establishes a line about 6 miles to the east of the city along what is known as the Rodriguez Canal. The Rodriguez Canal sits along the plantations along the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River will be on his right flank, or the right side of his line. The Rodriguez Canal will be in front of his line, acting as a 4-foot deep, 10-foot wide moat. Jackson will also extend his left flank out into a cypress swamp. This line Jackson, as we call it today, ran for roughly 1 mile from the Mississippi River up to the historic cypress swamp. South of the Mississippi River, Jackson will also install a small fortification as well as a number of cannon to protect his right flank, as well as to try to thwart any movement up the Mississippi River. Jackson, in fact, also has a number of warships, including the USS Carolina, the USS Louisiana, and some other ships in the vicinity. And what the British have going against them is, number one, it's winter. Number two, the Mississippi River is flowing in the opposite direction of where they need to go. So in the age of sail, it's very difficult to move up the Mississippi River using wind and pushing against that very heavy and fast current of the Mississippi River. By January 7th, the British have come up with a battle plan. Andrew Jackson will keep improving his line. He will pull in free blacks from New Orleans, as well as slaves along this line. He'll have the U.S. Marines. He'll have the 7th U.S. Infantry, who earns their nom de guerre, the cotton balers, because they fight behind cotton bales here. 7th U.S. Infantry has seen action in all of our major conflicts since the War of 1812. This line, Jackson, will be formidable. It points, the British think that it's about 20 feet high. At other places, it's about 10 feet high. It is very, very difficult to strike its flanks. And it's really only going to be able to fall via a frontal assault because the British are a little bit more impatient than they should be. In our battle map that we have shows a number of moving parts here. One moving part you don't see would be off the bottom of our map, and that would be a force of about 1,000 men led by Colonel William Thornton, an Irishman who moved troops across the Mississippi River on the evening of January 7th into the morning of January 8th, utilizing a canal that was cut by the British that ends up flooding, and there's all these problems with it. And he finally lands about 1,000 yards from where he was supposed to land. But he is going to march up and along the Mississippi River and support the left flank of the main British force. The main British force is led by Edward Pakenham. He's 37 years old, even though he looks much older than he is, and he's a veteran of the Peninsula Wars. Pakenham comes up with this plan to send Thornton south of the Mississippi River. Their job is to hit an advanced redoubt that is just in front of Line Jackson. That is where the British will actually have a good bit of success. But unfortunately for the British, the Americans are able to throw back the British forces because in the center and on the right of Pakenham's line, where you see the names of Gibbs, that's Samuel Gibbs, and Keene and Lambert, you're seeing that the British will strike the center, or roughly what they consider to be the center of Line Jackson. The British will make their assault across towards Line Jackson at around 6:30 in the morning of January 8th of 1815. A Congreve rocket will fire into the air. If you hear the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, well, the British were using rockets at this time. Now, these are not smart bombs like we use today. These are just what we would think of as large fireworks, essentially. They fire off into the air, and wherever the wind and their pathway takes them, they will go. This Congreve rocket goes into the air, explodes, does no damage to either side, but that is what's going to set off this assault. And forward to go Pakenham's troops. They are quickly thrown back because of the fire thrown at them by the Americans. At about 90 yards out, they start opening fire, the Americans do. Pakenham will throw more regiments into this fray. The 93rd Highlanders, who are not wearing kilts today, they're actually wearing plaid pants, will, rather than go to the left and help support the redoubt, they will swing to the right and hit that Line Jackson. But unfortunately for the British, within 30 minutes, the vast majority of them have been thrown back. A handful of officers and men actually break Line Jackson, but the line is so formidable, and there are so many Tennessee men waiting in the ranks behind Line Jackson, many of them unarmed, some armed with literally brooms, others with pitchforks and anything else they could find. They will throw back the British. Within 30 to 40 minutes, one of the greatest victories in United States history was secured by Andrew Jackson and his men. In the midst of all of this, General Pakenham and General Gibbs are both killed and mortally wounded on the battlefield. In fact, the British will lose 3 general officers and at least 7 field grade officers here within 30 minutes at the Battle of New Orleans. But the piece of property that we're trying to preserve, this yellow piece of property that you're seeing here, is just very important. This is a core portion of the battlefield, and some of the units that cross it will be the United States forces. The United States forces will actually move across here for that early skirmish that took place in late December of 1814. They will fall back across this property as they take up their line along the Rodriguez Canal, today known as Line Jackson. Now, if you look at this map, you'll see that there are a number of skirmishers from the U.S. Army out there. That's where their forward line would have been established before falling back as the British pressed forward. But you might also notice over in the darker green section, the 95th Rifles, and it's a skirmish line. Those are British men carrying Baker rifles, wearing green uniforms. And if you're a fan of Sean Bean, the actor Sean Bean, he is in the series known as Sharps. He is a officer in the Peninsula War, fighting against Napoleon, and it's Bernard Cromwell's great novels that he writes about. And the 95th Rifles were a real regiment that served largely through the peninsula. They serve here in America. They serve at Waterloo. Today, we would call this the Rifle Brigade. They'll go on to serve in the World Wars as a Rifle Brigade. They cross this property. The 43rd Light Infantry, their lineage carries them back to Lexington and Concord. They're some of the first troops to engage with American soldiers there. The 7th Royal Fusiliers, the 4th Regiment of Foot, the 21st Fusiliers, all of them have lineage back to our American Revolution, some serving at Germantown, some at Brandywine, where we've done a lot of work, some at Fort Ticonderoga, others at Lexington and Concord. So this is some of the creme de la creme of the British Army who will march across this piece of property, fight on this property, and lose many of their men as they're assaulting Line Jackson here. Some of you will say, Chris, now this battle doesn't matter because the Treaty of Ghent, the treaty that ends the War of 1812, was signed in December of 1814. Well, that's only partially true. On Christmas Eve of 1814, the 8 men who are meeting in Ghent, which is in modern-day Belgium, 5 from the United States, 3 from Great Britain, have signed the peace treaty. By December 28th, it has made its way to London, and Parliament has accepted this peace treaty, signed it on their behalf, and now Henry Clay will make his way across the Atlantic Ocean with this signed document to be presented to the president as well as Congress. That doesn't happen until February 14th. Of 1815. And the next day, February 15th, it is ratified by Congress, approved by and signed off by the president. But they don't know here in the United States that the war is coming to an end. But the larger story of the Battle of New Orleans is really showing the manifest destiny of the United States, or as it is believed to be in the 19th century. Andrew Jackson helped to hold New Orleans, which had only been in the United States for about 10 years. So now it's becoming an American city. The Lewis and Clark expedition has made its way across Louisiana Purchase earlier before the War of 1812 and made it out to the Pacific Ocean. But this action here with Lewis and Clark happening before, with New Orleans coming in, with the Louisiana Purchase, this is starting to show some Americans that we should take on this entire continent. It also is the catalyst for Andrew Jackson to become our 7th president of the United States. It is his fame that comes from the War of 1812, largely from the War of 1812, not just here at New Orleans, that puts him on a pathway to the executive mansion today, what we call the White House. But the Battle of New Orleans here, it's a very, very important battle to U.S. history. Some of our Army and Marine Corps have lineage back to this. And of course, these 40 acres that we have the opportunity to purchase for just a little over $1 million is a huge footprint here. We won't have another opportunity to purchase a piece of property like this around the New Orleans battlefield, the Chalmette battlefield, because this has come up and many of the pieces of property that are adjacent or close to Chalmette are industrial complexes or they're port complexes. You can see under the McCarty Plantation House, that was Jackson's headquarters, that's an inlet today for a lot of large ships. This is an integral piece to one of the most iconic battles in United States history. And we hope that you can support us. So head over to battlefields.org to learn more about this appeal, as well as the War of 1812, and check out our New Orleans virtual field trip that we took down there a few years ago, exploring places like Chalmette, the National World War II Museum, and the French Quarter, Bourbon Street, and beyond. And on behalf of the American Battlefield Trust, I'm Chris White. I want to thank you for watching and for supporting battlefield preservation and education.
In took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a-comin'. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We looked down a river and we see the British come, and there must have been 100 of them beating on the